Thank you, Mayor. We do have representatives from the college that are going to give a brief presentation about this project, talk about the project, what it consists of, and the impact that they've found through their studies that it will have on the community. In my summary, I put just some highlights. They're looking at constructing 158-room hotel, conference center, and dining facility north of the main campus, north of the Dow Center. The project would require vacation of a block of East Galloway Drive and a small portion of Summit Street. In consideration for this, the city would receive $300,000 paid in $100,000 increments and $1.7 million endowment set up at the Community Foundation for Essential City Services. I would envision that council would set what essential city services mean, and I refer you to the section that Jack McLean referred to earlier. The Community Development Committee of the City Council is recommending the full City Council review and approve the draft agreement. With that, I'll ask the college representatives, I believe Matt or Tim, to come up and kind of give us a brief overview.
Hello, my name is Matt Hazelton. I'm speaking kind of on behalf of the operations team that's planning on running the hotel. I just wanted to kind of speak high level as to the summary of the economic impact study we had conducted last fall. This will be repetitive for members of the Community Development Committee, but I figured it would be helpful for the full council here as well. So with the help of an outside economic firm, we conducted an economic impact study last fall, and we found between the one-time construction impact and the ongoing impact from the additional visitors to the city, an estimated $56 million in one-time economic impacts to the region through the construction of the hotel. Again, we spoke to the committee about the college's commitment to keeping as much of that construction work local and local construction firms. We shared some letters of support from some of those local firms. The construction phase will create an estimated 374 jobs for that 18 to 24 month span. And then obviously the question that we're all asking long term is what will the impact be going forward? So we estimate that the additional traffic from the hotel will generate approximately $2.6 million in annual visitor spending for the greater Hillsdale area as part of a complete $16 million in annual economic impact, including over $9.5 million in new money. What we mean by that new money is not only will the hotel be generating additional visitors in line with what she was talking about with the airport, but it'll also be bringing back revenue from Coldwater and Jackson and other surrounding areas where our visitors have been staying for hotel rooms, dining, etc. It will create approximately 80 positions at the hotel. In addition, the company estimated it will contribute to an additional 22 positions at various businesses in the area and generate over $12 million in state revenue, state taxes as well. I think that's all I had as far as the economic impact. Tim is going to speak on the agreement.
Good evening. So you should have the development agreement in front of you. It was the same format that was presented with Meyer, and for the last several months, Dave and I have worked on the components there, and Dave kind of taken the lead in terms of the format that the city had used for the agreement with Meyer. The main core, if we were to kind of boil it down, is the vacating or privatizing of that East Galloway Drive segment where that's adjacent to the chapel and adjacent to the current Dow Center, as well as a portion of Summit, going up Summit Drive from south to north, only to extend up to what the college owns on the west side of Summit Street. In conjunction with that, as Mr. Mackey stated, it would include a $1.7 million contribution for an endowment towards the, to be housed at the Hillsdale Community Foundation to be utilized for essential city services. In addition to that, three $100,000 payments made to the city, commencing no more than 90 days following the finalization of the vacation of the road and the easement there, with two subsequent $100,000 payments paid at the beginning of July of 2025 and 2026 should everything pass through. So I can answer any other questions that I know. It's still in the conceptual phase. There isn't much prudence to go much further than what might fit and what might work until we kind of know what path we might be able to go down. So.
Yes, I have a couple of things. One is just a procedural thing for us. The recommendation here on this first memo that City Manager Mackey gave us says discuss and consider approving the attached development agreement. And then the next memo says we have a public hearing on it at our next meeting. It seems to me that it would be a very good idea to discuss it at this meeting, but I don't think we should have a vote on it until after the public hearing. Makes no sense to do it that way. But City Council attorney has another idea, so let's see what that is.
So there are two separate things on your agenda. One of them is the discussion and approval of the development agreement itself. That does not require a public hearing to approve the agreement. The second one is assuming that the agreement is approved. If it's approved, and you would move forward with vacating the portion of Galloway Drive that's referenced, and which is between Hillsdale Street and Northwest Street, and then also vacating that small section of Summit Street. That gets introduced at this hearing pursuant to the provisions of the city charter, and then you set the hearing for the next meeting after the resolution is introduced. That is where you have the public hearing before you would vote on the vacation piece. But the first thing that's before you right now is to discuss the development agreement itself. The second one doesn't matter if the development agreement isn't approved.
Okay, I get it. Now, I do have questions for Mr. Wells. It says there's going to be 2.6, this impact data source, which was the organization that gave you the projections about or estimates about what the financial impact would be. It says 2.6 million, I believe, for annual off-site visitor spending, retail and dining. What was the basis of that estimate?
Basis of that is just historical data that the Dow Center has collected over the last several years in terms of overall nights of stay, nights where they are full, nights where they know that they have folks who may be on a wait list who are staying in the greater Hillsdale community. And when you overlay that with national hospitality trends, which I believe the number is for every night of stay, on average, the occupant spends or the guests spend about $58 in the surrounding community, be that in retail or in hospitality. We know that there are some pretty good numbers for what Hillsdale, what the Dow Center and Hillsdale sheds to places like Coldwater and Jackson when the college has events where they have a large draw of attendees.
Now, if we could, I'd like more detail on that at some point soon, because I mean, it seems to me that the obvious reason to have a hotel and connect it to the Searle Center is to keep people on site. You'll have the hotel dining area, and you'll also have the Searle Center dining area, which accommodates upwards of 800 people. So there's going to be plenty of dining going on right within the college, and it seems to me that the very rationale of having a hotel is to concentrate people on the college campus.
Well, I mean,
and I just want to know, I'm not saying that I'm right about that, I'm
Sure.
just saying that I want to see a little bit more in terms of statistics that back up this claim of 2.6.
Sure. I mean, that's certainly true to a degree. I think one of the things that the college has seen in the last couple of years is growth on the event side that is not specifically related to campus and college events, with the investment that's been made at the John Anthony Halter Center. We have a plethora of USA Shooting events and activities that are happening out there. We have a large event actually happening in the month of September, where hundreds of participants are coming with their families. This was an event that took place last year, but I believe it was in June or July, and so it's actually happening in the fall during the academic year. And all those folks are going to be staying in the community, and they're not coming
Okay, could
specifically.
be. I just wanna see, a little bit
Sure.
more real numbers rather than simply the assertion that this is the case.
You got something?
Yeah.
That would be useful.
Just to provide a little additional detail to that, for what it's worth, the current Dow hosts about 9,500 guests a year. And as Tim mentioned, we track about an additional 9,000 to 10,000 that do end up going to Jackson or Coldwater, the surrounding area. Of those other, if you look at the numbers at the new hotel, kind of total occupancy, that 9,000 and 10,000 combines to about 19,000, 20,000, which is only about 30 to 40% of the total occupancy. So I would say there's, as Tim alluded to, part of the reason for the hotel is also the creation of other kinds of events.
Put it in
That-
writing.
that do
and
draw
Put
people.
all that stuff in
Sure.
writing and, get the data from this data resource people so that we can actually see their reasoning behind it. That's what I want, that's all I'm interested in
Sure.
on that. Now the state revenues, 12 million, that's from what, a hotel tax, room tax, what is that?
Simply the
That's a
occupants.
room tax?
Correct.
Okay. And I'd like to know a little bit more about this Hillsdale Foundation agency, the 1.7 million endowment. Namely, who's going to make the decisions with respect to where that goes? Is it going to be the council? Is it going to be the Hillsdale Foundation? Who's going to be in control of that money that the college will be giving to that agency?
Well, it was intended to go to the community foundation for the community foundation's ability to invest it in the endowment model. So that would be kicking off an amount of money every year annually that would come to the council's discretion to be
It
able
will be
to,
under our discretion.
whatever
Use
the
of that,
proceeds of that
Right, oh,
would
I
be
understand, we're
for,
not gonna
yeah,
touch the capital.
for
Right.
essential city services. So
Right,
that,
okay.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Hey Tim,
Hey.
completion date, are we spitballing 27 or 28? If things go the way it should.
So, I would think it would be at least a 30 to 36 month project to do the right way. This is kind of phase one of what would be required as if we are to partner with the city in vacating the roads necessary and the easements. Then I believe the next step, and I would defer to Mr. Thompson, but the next step is we have to get this approved by the court. And I don't have a timeline in terms of how long or short that might take. But if that's the case, then we would start the architectural firms on the design drawings, and that is approximately 6 to 9 months. But that would also leave time per the agreement for the necessary infrastructural improvement that's necessary for the utilities to take place, and it happens at the city's direction and discretion. However, there are no city funds that are utilized for the necessary utility improvements and alterations. That all comes and is directly paid by the college. And then construction would be able to commence after that.
Okay, I think it's a needed thing, it is. I'm just worried about hopefully we'll get some more growth and more restaurants in this town because we want people not only just to eat up there, we'd like to have them come downtown and go out to the center of the shooting center. I go out there quite frequently and it's nice out there. I see the growth and expansion that's going on out there, so I know what you're talking about. Everything I see, it looks good, and I think it's a win-win for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this sets a really positive precedent, so appreciate it. So,
Hi Tim, thanks for coming out, appreciate you. Just two questions. Is this gonna be considered part of the college's mission for education, or will it be on the tax roll?
It is considered a missional component.
Okay. And then, I figured that, I just was curious. Then the second question is, are you gonna have a restaurant, a sit-down restaurant that's outside of,
Sure. Yeah, so right now, the hotel is comprised, as Matt mentioned, of still settling on the final number, but they've spec'd out 155 to 158 rooms. It would include a fine dining restaurant. It would also include additional ballrooms. One of the things that we've seen growth of, at the college is a desire to have it as a host site for weddings. And so I know there are several weddings that take place there, every year. And in addition to, corporate Christmas parties and other events of that nature. So it would provide additional hospitality space for things like that as well. So.
Council institutional.
Couple questions. One, everybody wants a win-win. This sounds good. They're definitely marketing to their needs, and you're gonna have a captive audience. There's not a whole lot of need to leave the hill and come downtown. You're gonna have everything you pretty much need there. My question is kind of a legal one in a sense. Can we waive property taxes and take an endowment, so the next person coming into town, I wanna build this beautiful home, and I'll give you once and all payment, and I'll be done. There's no property taxes. And if what happens if this foundation doesn't work, we lose this revenue 10, 15, 20 years from now. Is it legal to barter with property taxes for another payment? Is my first question.
Tom, will you address that?
Yes, you're not bartering for property taxes. There would be no property taxes because, as Mr. Wells just indicated, if it's part of the mission of the college, it is exempt from property taxes.
I want to add to that, because we've had, in good faith, we've had townhouses built that were not going to go to the college. We had a building downtown Hillsdale, part of Tifa, that wasn't going to go to the college, and then we've lost those tax revenues. The only difference here is they're being honest up front that they're not going to put it on the tax revenue.
Well, yes, but if they were to build something else on the property that they own, that's part of their mission, this isn't them acquiring something, for the most part, that is already on the tax
Other than
rolls.
Galloway Drive.
Galloway Drive is not taxed.
No, I
Just-
realize that.
Just so we understand, this is not a sale of property to the college. Galloway Drive and Summit Street are platted rights of way. So in their plat, what happens is if I plat a piece of property, which is I have this big chunk of property, I want to subdivide it so I can sell off lots to people. As part of getting my plat approved, and in the case of the two plats at issue here, what they did is when they established the plats, they dedicate streets to the use of the public. You can dedicate them only to the use of the individuals in the plat if you want to, in which case they're private streets or private drives. Here, way back when they did the Blackmar BB edition and the E. Martindale edition, which are the two plats that are involved, they dedicated Galloway Drive, which I think was called Mechanic Street in the plat, and Summit Street to the use of the public. When they're dedicated to the use of the public, the municipal entity that has jurisdiction there can either affirmatively accept them, or if they don't say, no, we don't want to take responsibility for them, after a period of time, they become deemed to be accepted by the entity. So in this case, those two streets were accepted for public use by the city of Hillsdale. Back then it was a village. And when you accept them on behalf of the public, they become public rights of way. They are not owned by the municipality. The property is not owned by the city. The city has a right of way to use those, and the members of the public have a right of way to use those. But the cost to maintain them, when you accept them, becomes the municipalities. So what happens is, when you vacate the street, you are in effect saying, okay, well, we accepted that dedication for use for the public, also accepting the responsibility to maintain it. When we vacate that, we are saying we're giving those rights to the public to use that back, but we're also giving up any obligation we have to maintain it. So that's what the vacation process is. And it doesn't mean, however, that the people who own property in those plats lose their rights to the use of that area. They still have an individual easement with respect to that, which is what Mr. Wells referenced, a court action. The only way that you can cut those off is by asking the circuit court to amend the plat to basically get rid of those. And there's a procedure that you go through to do that. So that's if you read in the development agreement, the part where it says that the city, one, would vacate the public's rights, which allows then the college to ask the court to amend the plat so that those streets wouldn't show up anymore. And in that process, all of the property owners get joined. And the development agreement provides simply that the city would be agreeing, well, since we vacated it, we're not going to oppose that. That's going to be between the college and the court and any of the folks that have property in the plat that would be affected by the vacation. I hope that answers your question.
Just in layman's terms for the public, nothing's coming off the tax rolls.
Not a thing is coming off the tax rolls.
I was on the community committee on this. I really think it's a win-win for both the college and Hillsdale. If you actually look at the properties that the college has purchased, talking about tax rolls, and taking them off the tax rolls, and then they basically, what they do is they tear them down and they either use them for some classrooms if they can, but if they can't, then they have an empty lot and they pay tax on that empty lot if it's actually not contributing to their mission statement. In this case, with us vacating Galloway Drive and Summit, a portion of Summit, the amount of taxes that the city is out of from all the purchases college for the most part in recent years, I got from the city assessor roughly, works out to about $78,000 a year. With this agreement, the city's given up, I'm gonna say about 1/10 of the streets that they own, that they're having issues with maintaining, and that's why we're doing the SADs. And the college is creating a $1.7 million endowment, community foundation, with 100,000 payments for the 3 years, and the purpose is to let that 1.7, hopefully at 5%, would grow to 2 million after the 3-year span is up. That would roughly generate very possibly 100,000 a year. So it's kind of replacing a lot of the taxes the city's lost out on with the college. It's being a good neighbor. It basically really quiets those in the community because of the divide a lot of the locals with the college have, that, well, they don't pay their fair share. Well, they can actually say now going forward, that, well, yeah, we do. You know, we have an endowment that actually is contributing possibly 100,000. And my whole intention on that endowment would be that it would get larger and larger and larger. And which would help a lot of the problems we have in addressing these issues. And again, it's up to the future councils to decide how that essential services fee, money should be spent. But I think it's a really win-win, and the college can basically say, hey, we're contributing to the city and the functions that they provide. So I really can't see anything wrong with this. I think going forward, it's being a good neighbor, and the college, I think, is returning that favor on the endowment. So I'm all supportive of it.
Councilman Saad.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilman Beer. I just wanted to express, and I meant to do this earlier, but my gratitude to the college for establishing an endowment. One of my fears, though, is that will it be established as an irrevocable trust, or something that future councils can't dig into that principle and whittle it down so that it becomes nothing? We don't have to determine that tonight, but that's definitely something that I would appreciate. And is it council that determine, would we be the fiduciaries that determine exactly how it's set up? Or is that the college's discretion because they're the providers of the endowment? Or could you help me understand that?
I don't know what the intent is, because I wasn't involved in negotiating it, but, from a legal standpoint, it would depend upon what the agreement with the community foundation to take it would be. So when you place funds, I know from being on the school board in Jonesville, we placed money that we received from a trust that had been giving money out every year to the school district. Decided that they wanted to terminate the trust, so it gave a lump sum. The money was placed with the community foundation. You define in the agreement with the community foundation the circumstances under which it can be drawn on if there are any limitations to that. So presumably that would be part of the discussion between the city and the college as to how that would be provided for, as to whether or not there would be restrictions on the city's ability to access the principal, or if the city wanted to be able to have that if it had to.
Thank you for that. And then the $300,000 payments, those are going to be deposited to increase the fund. Or the endowment. Was that the intention there? Or
To allow the endowment to gain the interest that it needs.
The three $100,000 payments on an annual basis would go directly into the city funds. Okay, the 1.7 is gonna sit for 3 years. So assuming a 5% return, that would get it up to close to 2 million. And then in the fourth year, that would be where, and I would think this council could decide that, as far as, say, okay, going forward in that fourth year, as a council, you're only allowed to take, say, a 4% out of that fund. But the whole purpose of that endowment was that it would be forever, and that you'd only be really accessing the interest or the gains from such fund.
And that's what the 300,000, the 3 years of the 100,000 is to allow the endowment to build the interest. And to make up for those, and after that 3 years, then it would be essentially the 100,000 continuation of it in perpetuity.
And we're not determining that here tonight. But would we give the city direction, or is that the city manager and his team's responsibility to determine?
It's council.
It's us. Okay.
Councilman Morrissey, sorry.
Councilman Veer mentioned the maintenance of the streets, and so I want to make a general comment about that neighborhood. I've heard it alleged that the best streets in Hillsdale City are those that surround the college. That is a falsehood. The worst streets in Ward 2, which Councilwoman Pratt and I represent, are almost all of them within 600 yards of the college campus. And I can name them. There's one, Fairview is on the other side of 99. That's in poor condition. But the rest of them, and I'll name them for you. There's West Fayette between West and Hillsdale Street. There's West Street between West Fayette and College Street. There's McClellan Street. There's Park Street. There's Summit Street. Davidson Street is in deplorable condition. And that Galloway between West and the wastewater treatment plant is a gravel road where those big trucks kick up a cloud of dust every time they go through. And there are residences on those streets. Some of those places are owned by the college, to be sure, but there are real people living on those streets, and they do not have adequate streets in that area. So I want to make that very clear, because there's been a lot of talk in this town about the condition of the streets around the college, and I think some consideration needs to be given to the residents in that area with respect to improving their streets. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. And as a matter of fact, Dave can attest to this. We've gone out of our way to not make it appear that we're fixing streets up around the college only. So, sure.
I think it was few years back, they, college actually paved Hillsdale Street, I believe it was.
It was West Street.
West Street?
Yes.
Yeah, they came right up and helped pay for it, so they have contributed. It'd just be nice if they contribute a little more, and they will. This is a good thing, so I don't see a problem with it. I mean, Summit, or Galloway's, that street you're talking about, everything there is college connected anyway, between West and Hillsdale Street. Everything there is owned by the college. So we're just vacating it, but it's still gonna be there. It's a no-brainer, really. It really is. And what you come to us is a fair offer, and I appreciate it.
It is, it's a super positive thing, I think, and I think it sets a really good precedent, and I think in, years down the line, we're all gonna look back at this as something really positive that happened for the whole community. Councilman Pellegrini.
There was a comment earlier, I think it was about total occupancy, about the 20,000 projected occupants. A number was thrown around 30 to 40%. What was that number?
Yeah, so like Tim mentioned, it's current drawings point to a 158 room hotel, which I believe at 100% occupancy is 58,000 rooms in a calendar year. So the 20,000 is the kind of the known, based off current demand, that's the known demand, and that 30,000, 38,000 is the current gap. So
38, okay, so does it fill, so it's not close to filling all known demand?
no,
Or it's exceeding,
it's
by 38,000?
exceeding significantly from the college, the known demand currently, yes, it's bigger than.
Oh, wow. Okay, the question that, how does this affect the Kiefer House? Have you discussed with their team?
Yeah, that was actually one of the first things we did back when we were envisioning this. I had a conversation with one of the representatives from the company in 2018, I believe in August, and they actually projected that their demand between the project with the Kiefer and the Dawn would create a net positive. They would exceed the capacity of the Kiefer, and they were coming to us kind of with a plan for how to put their extra people in the Dow, which is one of the things that would encourage us to continue to pursue this, because in addition to far exceeding the college's own demand, they suggested that the college, or that they would contribute to additional demand as well.
Okay. It sounds like what we're hearing is that there's gonna be far more rooms available than are necessary.
There are far more rooms than are necessary from the existing demand. So as Tim alluded to, the halter shooting sports has grown exponentially over the last 5 years. So we've only been tracking these numbers for 3 or 4 years.
So you were projecting additional growth, additional
Correct.
events
Thank
at
you,
the
yes.
college to fill those 38,000?
There's additional growth that's already happening, yes. It's building room to grow, I think, to answer your question broadly.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
The annual state tax revenue, what did you say that was?
It was 12 million over 10 years.
12, so 1.2 million, okay.
John, to talk to your point, and then Mr. Stucci, you mentioned this too about the restaurants. One of the things that we've seen the last couple of years is not that the college is doing so many things back to back, but we're actually doing, or having requests to do things almost on top of each other at the same time.
Yes, thank
And one of the things that was new this year is the representatives from the American Legion reached out to me about a year ago, and they had said we don't have, right now, we don't have a future home for the American Legion's national rhetorical competition, where they bring in all the state winners and they give their speeches and their families and whatnot. And so for the better part of 8 months, we worked on with their staff. We brought them up, on multiple occasions to tour the campus. Normally they're in big convention centers, and they thought this would be a great place that teaches the Constitution and loves that, and that's the theme that their organization is all about and has. And so we were able to host them on campus, and they were not charged for that. But in conjunction with that, there was only one, and if I remember correctly, it was back in May, there was only one official meal event. I think we may have had some lunches, but there was only one time So, the vast majority, because they're all high schoolers, are coming with parents and friends and family, and may have had other opportunity. We actually were able to host, their request, their air rifle championships in the Beerman Center, just last month. And, I think they were welcome to eat in the cafeteria if it's open. It's not open all summer. It's open when we have large groups, and they were welcome to do that. But outside of that, their things were kind of on their own. With the completion of Hayden Park, we're seeing a whole lot more. We're host for the Great Midwest Athletic Conferences, across country, and the conference is bringing their teams, here to stay. And I, in former life, was the assistant women's basketball coach at the college a long time ago, and when we would travel, we're staying in a hotel that's hopefully close to the game site, but we were going somewhere to eat all the time. And I don't know that that the restaurant is gonna be competing for a lot of the team travel. But I guess we're doing a lot of things simultaneously. I know what we're finding, and even just to be able to have the benefit of the growth that we've seen over the last couple of years. It was an honor to get the call from Shay Dow, who called one of the gentlemen who works for me to say, I think we've outgrown the AG church. Is there any way we could move Officer Butler's funeral over to you guys? And we said, just tell us when. And for the better part of 3 days, we put everybody to work, to do that, when it was trying to do right by the family and the sheriff's department for hospitality, for food before and after. We did that, and Plaster and our AV teams were doing overflow in there, and our marketing guys did the video, and it was an honor to do it, and to have a place where we could do that, it was great. And so to be able to grow the facilities, it's truly, it's not, anyway, I think there's broad benefit for those that want to come and use it, all the time. So, I'm sorry, John, Mr. Collins, you had a question about a number.
The annual state revenue, I think you answered that. 12 million over 10 years, so 1.2 million a year. And then what's our projected endowment revenue? About 100,000.
It would come in at 1.7 million, and we've tried to not assume anything, but let appropriate people know that this is potentially there, so no one is blindsided by the possibility of this. And then it's obviously at their discretion. It's not the college's intention to control how that is handled, but to make sure that they're aware that this would be coming to them for the purposes of an endowment model, whereby the revenue that it generates would come to the city, to assist in the constant need for essential city services.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I would like to see the strongest protections for this to remain in the future. Was there any discussion in these negotiations about future properties being taken off the tax rolls?
No, there was not.
Okay. One further thing I would like to see, and I think this agreement is good, would be that specifically in the downtown, the college agreed not to take any more properties off of the tax roll. I would like to see the whole city, but the downtown is really key. Or if they do, that we have some sort of agreement that maybe, as Greg said, we have another one-time payment to contribute to this. I do think this sets a good standard, but I just want to make sure that the city's interests are protected in the long term as well.
Thank you, Councilman Palladino.
I was glad to hear Councilman Palladino raise the issue of the relationship between the hotel proposal and the Kiefer House, because for many years, I was grateful for the answer that we received, because for many years I've heard the claim that the only reason Tifa and the city generally were interested in rehabilitating the Dawn and the Kiefer House was to serve college interests. As I pointed out to someone at one point, the college already has a theater, so it doesn't need the Dawn Theater. And now we see that, as a matter of fact, the business plan of CL Enterprises has nothing to do with the college. And that the college, in fact, has had for a number of years, evidently, the plan of having its own hotel. So the two are severed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Morrissey.
Councilman Stuchel.
Question for city manager. This model, could we use this if we brought in some business into town, out to the industrial park, instead of having them pay a property tax, they give us maybe $5 million endowment type, something similar to this?
No, we cannot barter over the property taxes, but if we receive a donation or funds from a business or some other entity, it could go in this endowment. So this endowment.
I'm talking a brand new industry comes into town.
Mhm.
Could you use this type of a model instead of a tax model? An endowment model instead of a tax model?
Tom,
The answer is absolutely no. Property taxes are governed by the General Property Tax Act. There is no other way other than that and some other statutes that allow you to tax for certain things to generate revenue for the city.
So if it was a church, you could do it. The college can do this because their tax exempt anyway, because it's, right? So a church-
Yes, and part of it's my understanding anyway, that part of the reason for this is part of the negotiation was that by building this larger facility, the college puts more of a stress on the city's ability to provide, as we've indicated, essential services, police, fire protection in particular.
You missed the point, you missed the point.
Anybody could do it, Councilman Stuchel, you just couldn't do it in lieu of property taxes if you already have to pay property taxes. This is the alternative to the long talked about
That's what
payment
I'm
in lieu of
speaking.
taxes.
So if a business comes in, they can make this type of an offer.
Yeah, anybody could leave us in the city of Hillsdale an endowment with the community foundation.
Yeah, but it would be a voluntary thing under most circumstances. The reason that it's a point of negotiation here is you indicated maybe for another nonprofit.
It's so they're not paying a property tax on these hotels.
Yes. Well, no, they aren't gonna pay a property tax on the hotels. If they built the hotel without this development agreement, they're not gonna pay property taxes on it most likely.
Yeah, I do.
Pardon me?
So I got it. They just go. I got it.
Councilman Palladino.
I think perhaps what Councilman Stuchel is getting at is that, I don't know if this would be legal, we offer someone an Oprah, some sort of rehabilitation agreement, and for an amount that, is far less than the tax receipts or tax savings from the Oprah, they pay some amount into the endowment fund. I don't know if that's some sort of illegal trading, but I think that would be the theory there.
Okay, that makes sense. This is to our benefit more than it's to this particular one is to our benefit more than the college's benefit. So this isn't, we're not making like a real deal with them. But
I think it works both ways. I really do, is benefits both of us in the long run. There is a need, and we need to have this. And what you've come with is something, at least we get something this time, instead of like the call center, who's just taking off the Tiffin Road and stuff like that. We're getting something this time, and that's what I see.
Have you heard any complaints from the folks on Summit Street? Is it gonna come close to their property? Are they concerned at all?
I have not specifically heard from anyone on Summit Street, and we're not asking for any vacating of a road or easement that would be adjacent to privately owned residences.
and on this next item, you would set the public hearing where they would have an opportunity to come in and speak to council if there was a concern. But as was stated by Tom and Tim, the college owns all the property that we're talking about around the vacated, potentially vacated streets, so we're not encroaching on them.
Councilman Beard.
Motion to approve the agreement.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Beer, seconded by Councilman Sharp to approve the attached development agreement with Hillsdale College regarding the Dow Hotel expansion. Can I have a roll call, City Clerk?
Councilperson Soha,
Yes.
Stuchel,
Yes.
Beer,
Yes.
Wolfram,
Recuse.
Mayor Stockford,
Yes.
Councilperson Morrissey,
Yes.
Palladino,
Yes.
Pratt. Yes. And Sharp.
Yes.
That's it. 8-0.
Thank you, Katie.